Hey, it's Elizabeth, and I have a story that'll make you question everything about family loyalty. My parents banned my kids from Thanksgiving just because of a lie they told. But here's where it gets worse. The truth I uncovered wasn't just about betrayal, it was about long standing secrets, hidden agendas, and money that wasn't mine to begin with. So, what do you do when your own family turns against you like this? Stay tuned, and I'll tell you how I took control. Have you ever felt betrayed by someone you loved? Ever been left out of something you deserve to be a part of? Drop a comment below. I really want to know how you handled it. And where are you watching from? Let me know. The sun hung low, casting its golden light across our small suburban neighborhood. I had just pulled up in front of the house, the kids chattering away in the back seat, when I realized that this was probably the calmest moment I'd have all week. Mason, wide-eyed and still humming his preschool tune, had his little backpack resting on his lap. Callie, in the front seat, was scrolling through her phone, hardly a hint of emotion. A typical afternoon. I leaned back in my seat for a second, imagining the family dinner coming up in a week. Thanksgiving, where everything was supposed to feel right. Maybe this year would be different. Maybe this year, for once, my family would see us. See me. Maybe we'd finally have the dinner we deserved. No drama, no more of the silent judgments. I could almost smell the turkey now, hear my mom's voice clucking over the mashed potatoes. It wasn't the food I was craving, though. It was the moment, the illusion of it all being normal. Just a family. I wasn't sure what I was hoping for. An apology? An acknowledgement? Maybe it was something simpler than that. Maybe I just wanted to belong. The phone rang. It was Judith. I swallowed hard and picked up the call, forcing a smile into my voice. Hey, Mom, what's up? Hi, sweetie. Just wanted to let you know we're doing a smaller dinner this year. Just the adults, you know. It'll be nice and quiet. No kids around. My heart dropped. I fought to keep my voice steady. Are Daniel's kids coming? There was a long, drawn-out silence, the kind that filled a room with far too much meaning. And then her voice, cold and distant, like a sheet of ice cracking. Yes, of course. I felt the heat surge in my chest. It wasn't anger yet, just a sickening betrayal that settled deep. My own mother, cutting us out once again. I had always been the outsider in that family, but to hear it in her voice, casually dismissing me like I was nothing, felt like a slap across my face. And then there it was, the unspoken truth between the lines. I didn't belong. Okay, I said, as if nothing was wrong, as if the rug hadn't just been yanked out from under me. She went on, talking about the menu, the weather, the new centerpiece she'd picked up. I stopped listening. The words became a blur. I hung up, numb, staring at the screen in my hand. Callie and Mason's voices drifted in from the back seat. They were laughing about something, their innocent joy like salt in an open wound. The silence in the car felt suffocating. 1,000 thoughts ran through my head. My mind kept flashing to moments from the past. Callie's recital where no one showed up, Mason's quiet question one evening, asking where Grandma was, that aching, unanswered question. I let the kids into the house, each of them bursting with their own energy, completely unaware of what had just transpired. I didn't know if it was a blessing or a curse that they couldn't understand the weight of this moment. I went to the kitchen and sat, staring at my phone. The feeling of betrayal still gnawed at me, but there was something else, something far colder. A decision forming in my mind, like a shadow gathering strength. I couldn't let this go. I wouldn't pretend again. Not this time. Later that night, after the kids were tucked into bed, I sat at the kitchen table. The soft glow of the lamp illuminated the cluttered counter, but my attention was fixed on my phone. I opened my banking app, fingers trembling as I navigated through the account. There it was, the Authorized Users tab. My parents had used my card for years. I had never questioned it, not until now. It was almost too easy. I clicked through, removed their access, and canceled the card. There was a rush of clarity. A small smile tugged at the corner of my mouth. Not from satisfaction, but from something deeper. From power. I wasn't sure what I was about to do next. But I knew one thing. I wasn't going to let them dictate my life anymore. Not this year. Not ever again. The next morning, the phone rang again. It was Judith, of course. I didn't pick up. Let it go to voicemail. Your father's card got declined this morning. What's going on? Her voice was thin, trying to be casual, but I could hear the sharpness behind it. I deleted the message without listening to the rest. My hand hovered over the screen for a moment, but I didn't reply. I just set the phone face down on the table. I didn't flinch. I didn't feel anything but a steady calm, like a wall rising around me. And in that silence, I knew. Thanksgiving was going to be different. They had no idea what was coming. 16 years ago, I was sitting backstage, alone. Callie's recital was about to start. The hall was filled with excited parents and grandparents, their faces radiating pride. But not mine. I waited, heart pounding, hoping against hope that my parents would walk through the door. They never did. They chose the other grandchildren's event instead. I had been practicing for months, envisioning their faces as I stood on stage, a smile on my face, proud to show them how far I had come. But they weren't there. The music played, my heart sank, and all I could think about was how small I felt. I wasn't even important enough to them to warrant a phone call, let alone their presence. It was a simple thing, really, a recital. But it was my moment, and they chose to ignore it. Chose to ignore me. I let myself dwell on the thought for too long. It didn't get easier with time. It just made me resent them more. I could hear their voices in my head now, their excuses so rehearsed, so fake. Sorry, sweetie. We got tied up with other things. Next time, okay? But next time never came. I stood up from the couch and walked into the kitchen, trying to shake off the past. Neil was sitting at the table, a cup of coffee in front of him. He hadn't noticed me yet, and I hesitated. Then I noticed something strange, an envelope on the counter. I'd seen it before, but today it caught my attention in a different way. It was from the credit card company, and when I glanced at the statement, something caught my eye. The charges, they weren't mine. It was only a few $100s at first, but as I flipped through the rest of the statements, I realized what had been happening for years. My parents had been using my credit card, for groceries, for things I hadn't even agreed to. All this time, I'd been paying for their life while they pretended everything was fine, pretending to be the perfect parents. I froze. The anger rushed through me like an unstoppable wave. I hadn't even realized how much they had taken from me until now, how much I had given them without question, how much they had used me without a second thought. I clenched my fists, the tightness in my chest suffocating. How could they do this to me? I wondered. But then, the answer was too clear. It was who they were. This was never a mistake, not an oversight. It was deliberate. They had used me, emotionally and financially, for years. Neil, I called out, my voice sharp. He looked up, sensing something was wrong. What's going on? He asked, his eyes full of concern. I didn't answer right away. I shoved the statement towards him, and he took it without a word. His face changed as he read, and I could see the understanding wash over him. How long had they been doing this? I thought, but I didn't have the answer. I only knew how it felt now, in this moment. You've got to confront them, Neil said, his voice steady, but laced with anger. I nodded, but I couldn't even find the words. What could I say to them? How could I express what I was feeling? Betrayed, violated, manipulated. They had taken more than just money from me. They had taken my trust, my security, my belief in them as parents. I've had enough, I muttered to myself. It wasn't just the money. It was the years of being treated like a second choice, the recital that never happened, the phone calls that were always too late, the lies I had been fed, wrapped in excuses. I took a deep breath and stood up straight. My face was hard, determined. It was time for me to stop being passive. I wasn't just going to sit back anymore and let them take what wasn't theirs. I knew what I had to do, and for the first time in my life I didn't hesitate. I'd confront them, but not just about the money. About everything. Everything. I felt the weight of it as soon as Neil said it, like a punch to the gut I couldn't see coming. Darlene, they've been using your card for years, he said, his voice almost apologetic. I stared at him, trying to process his words. Years. My parents had been charging their vacations, new furniture, their lavish dinners, everything on my credit card, without me knowing, without me ever agreeing. The anger burned through me, sharp and intense. How long had they been stealing from me? I could feel it in my veins, this deep, boiling betrayal. Neil was watching me, his brow furrowed in concern, but there was no sympathy in his eyes, only a kind of silent acknowledgement of what had been happening. He was right, and that stung the most. I had given them my trust, hoping they'd realize their financial irresponsibility, but instead they used me. They treated me like a bank, an unlimited resource they could tap into without a second thought. I swallowed hard. This was not just about money. It was about control. They had used me as a tool to prop up their image of success, to maintain their lifestyle while I struggled to keep my own life together. I leaned back in the chair, my hands gripping the edge of the table as I processed it. The memories flooded in, vivid and painful. My father asking for help, paying off his credit card when I was barely scraping by myself. My mother always finding a way to blame me when their bills piled up, telling me I should do more for the family. But this was something deeper. They didn't just need me to lend a hand. They needed me to prop up their entire existence. I closed my eyes. The betrayal stung, not just because of the money, but because I had let them do it. I had let them take from me without ever thinking about what it would cost me. The real blow came the next week. My parents were planning a trip to Disneyland, but they didn't even invite me. It wasn't the trip that hurt. It was the fact that they didn't think to include me as part of the family. They were taking my kids, their grandchildren, on a trip and leaving me out of it entirely. I wasn't just excluded from a vacation. I was excluded from the very life I had worked so hard to build. I stood in the living room, staring at the invitation they had given my kids. The picture of Disneyland on the front mocked me. It was meant to be a family event, yet here I was, the mother of those children, cast aside like I didn't even exist. They had spent so many years undermining me as a mother, always telling me I was too strict, too uptight. But this was something else entirely. They had chosen my children over me, not even recognizing my place in their lives as a parent. I couldn't breathe. Every part of me screamed to lash out, to make them understand what they had done, but something stopped me. A feeling of helplessness washed over me, followed by a wave of determination. I wouldn't stand for it. I couldn't. I picked up my phone and called Neil, my heart pounding in my chest. "They're taking the kids to Disneyland," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "Without me." Neil's voice softened. "I'm sorry, Darlene. They've crossed a line." I hung up, feeling the weight of his words sink deep into my bones. They'd crossed a line, and I wasn't about to let them do it again. The days that followed were filled with a suffocating tension. I couldn't shake the thought that my parents had taken more than just my money. They had taken my role as a mother, stripped me of it without a second thought. I was angry, frustrated, but more than that, I was determined. The more I thought about it, the more the idea grew. I couldn't just let this go. I couldn't let them destroy my family, undermine my role as a mother, and then expect me to keep letting them have their way. I needed to act, and I would. I sat down at the kitchen table, my mind racing with the possibilities. I had already cut them off financially in small ways before, but this was different. It was time to make the big move. I wasn't just going to fight for my role as a mother. I was going to fight for my dignity, for my right to be seen as more than just a source of income. I pulled my credit card from my wallet, looking at the numbers printed on it, feeling a mix of anger and resolve. They were done. I wasn't going to allow them to keep using me. That night, I told Neil. "I'm cutting them off," I said. The words felt powerful, final. I'll cancel the card, change the account, do whatever it takes. They need to know there's a price for using me like this." Neil hesitated, his hand resting on the back of his neck. "Are you sure? This could blow everything up." I nodded. "I'm sure. They don't get to manipulate me anymore." He didn't say anything else. He didn't need to. The decision had already been made. I sat there, the card burning in my hand, and realized something. This wasn't just about money. It was about power. I could feel my pulse pounding in my ears as I stared at the letter in my hands. The crisp, cold paper seemed to mock me with its official-looking font and threats written in black ink. My parents, my own flesh and blood, were demanding reimbursement for all the so-called parental expenses they'd accrued over the years, and on top of that, they were threatening legal action. They weren't just asking for money, they were coming after my daughter Callie. "Darlene, what's wrong?" Neil asked, his voice tentative, but I barely heard him. I was already pacing back and forth, trying to absorb the full weight of the letter. My parents had taken things to a whole new level. It wasn't enough for them to just manipulate me. Now they were trying to control my child, too. They wanted visitation rights, and worst of all, they were threatening to take her from me. "This can't be real," I muttered under my breath. But there it was, a formal legal threat that no longer left room for doubt. My stomach turned. I slammed the letter down on the kitchen counter, my hands shaking. "Darlene," Neil repeated, stepping forward to grab my arm gently. "Talk to me. What's going on?" I yanked my arm away, irritation flashing across my face. "They filed for her passport, without telling me, behind my back." Neil blinked, processing the words. "They what?" "They're trying to take her, Neil. They've already made moves to get her passport, and now this lawsuit. They're treating me like some kind of stranger, like I don't have any say in what happens to my own daughter." I wanted to scream. The anger that had been simmering for months now boiled over. My parents had always been manipulative, but this crossed a line I hadn't even known existed. Neil's expression darkened as he processed the full weight of the situation. "We need to get a lawyer," he said after a beat, his voice low and serious. "This isn't just about money anymore. This is about your daughter." "I know," I whispered, my voice trembling, "but they're going to fight me, Neil. They won't back down." The thought of going up against my parents in court, of enduring their lies and manipulation in front of a judge, it made my stomach churn. But then something inside me snapped. They had crossed a line, and I wasn't going to let them walk all over me anymore. I wasn't just going to let them take Callie from me. "I'll fight them," I said, the words finally tumbling from my lips, more certain than I'd ever felt in my life. "I'll fight them with everything I have." The next few days were a blur of phone calls, emails, and lawyer meetings. I was more determined than I'd ever been before, but the reality of what I was up against started to sink in. My parents weren't just playing dirty, they were playing for keeps. We received another letter, this one from their lawyer. It was a formal demand for the reimbursement of their parental expenses. The audacity. They had spent years controlling me, manipulating every move I made, and now they wanted me to pay them back for their sacrifice. I could feel the bile rise in my throat as I read through the details. They listed every single penny they claimed to have spent on raising me, expenses for my school, clothes, food, vacations. It was absurd. They were trying to turn me into a debtor, as though I owed them something for raising their own daughter. "I'm going to fight this," I told Neil, pacing around the living room, trying to keep my emotions in check. Neil didn't speak at first. I could see the wheels turning in his mind. I could see the fear creeping into his eyes, but he wasn't saying it aloud. He wasn't going to admit how dangerous this was for us, how dangerous it was for Callie. "This is more than just a lawsuit," Neil finally said, his voice barely above a whisper. "They want control of Callie. This isn't about money. They want to tear her away from you. They want to tear us apart." I could feel the anger surge again, hot and unforgiving. I gripped the back of the couch until my knuckles went white. "I won't let them," I snapped. "They can't take her from me." I spent the next few weeks consulting with a lawyer, gathering every piece of evidence I could: the paperwork from the passport application, the letters, the history of their behavior, every document, every phone call, every small detail that would help me fight them. But with every step, I could feel my nerves stretching thinner and thinner. The stress was starting to take its toll. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't eat. The only thing that kept me going was the thought of my daughter. I couldn't let them win. The day I received the next bombshell, I knew there was no turning back. The envelope was thick, too thick, and when I opened it, the words leaped out at me. A signed agreement, my signature. I knew instantly that something was wrong. I'd never signed anything like this. Not now, not ever. I stared at the four. The document sat there staring at me. I had seen it before, but it had never seemed so foreign, so wrong. My fingers trembled as I picked it up again, the fake agreement letter my family had forged, pretending it was my signature. The words were clear as day, each one a reminder of the depths they were willing to sink to. My own family, willing to manipulate and lie just to get what they wanted. Betrayal didn't even begin to cover it. I could feel the heat rising in my chest. I wanted to throw the paper across the room, to scream, to confront them all at once. But I didn't. I couldn't afford to be rash. Not now. I took a deep breath, leaning back in my chair as I processed it. This wasn't just about money or custody. No, it was far worse. It was a direct attack on my autonomy. They were trying to take control of my life, of my decisions, even my children's futures, and I wouldn't let them. I set the letter aside, not trusting myself to hold it any longer. I needed a plan, a strategy. The first step was clear: get the truth. I had to know who was behind this, who else had been complicit. But that could wait. For now, I had to focus on what I could do about it, and that meant taking legal action. The phone rang, cutting through the silence. My stomach clenched as I saw the name on the screen. Judith, my mother-in-law. I knew she was involved in all of this. The moment I picked up, I could hear the calculated sweetness in her voice. Darlene, darling, I hope everything is going well with the case. I couldn't even pretend to be polite anymore. What are you doing, Judith? I demanded, my voice tight with restrained fury. There was a pause on the other end. Then, what do you mean, dear? Her tone was so innocent, too innocent. You've gone too far, I snapped. You've crossed every line there is, and now you're trying to control my daughter? I know you listed yourself as her emergency contact at school. You think I wouldn't find out? The silence was deafening. I could almost see her fuming, but she held it together. Darlene, I don't want to hear it, I cut in, my voice firm. I'm the one responsible for my daughter, not you. You've overstepped. The conversation ended with a terse promise to update the records. But I knew Judith. This wouldn't be the last I'd hear from her. I sat back, my fingers still gripping the phone as I mulled over my next move. The legal battle had just begun, but now, it wasn't just about the money. It wasn't even just about Callie or the house. It was about taking back control. I was done letting them pull my strings. A few days later, I walked into the lawyer's office, the same one who had been helping me with the divorce. The weight of what I was about to do hung heavy in the air. The forged letter, the lies, the manipulation, it all pointed to one thing. I had to act fast. My family wasn't going to stop, and neither would I. We need to file a complaint, I said, setting the letter down on his desk. They forged my signature, and I need to make sure this doesn't ruin my case. I'm done playing nice. The lawyer looked over the document, his eyes narrowing. This is serious, Darlene. You're right, they've crossed a line. I don't care how much it costs, I said, the words coming out sharper than I intended. I need to stop them. He nodded, making notes. We'll move quickly. You've got a solid case here. I leaned back in the chair, letting his words sink in. Finally, I was doing something about all of this. I wasn't just reacting anymore. I was fighting back. The next few days were filled with meetings, phone calls, and endless paperwork. But I didn't mind. I was in control now, taking every necessary step to protect myself, my children, and my future. My family thought they could manipulate me, but they hadn't seen what I was capable of when pushed far enough. The last call of the day came as a surprise. It was Judith again, this time asking me to meet her for coffee. I knew what she wanted, to try to talk me down, to manipulate me into backing off. I was done with that. I didn't even hesitate. "I'm not interested in coffee, Judith. I'm interested in winning this battle, and I'll do whatever it takes to make sure you never pull something like this again." I ended the call without waiting for her response, my heart racing with adrenaline. The battle had begun, and I was ready. The morning light filtered through the blinds, but it barely made a difference. I stared at the phone in my hands, feeling the weight of the world pressing down on me. Travis had done it. He'd called CPS. He'd painted me as unfit, as unstable, and now they were coming. I could barely breathe. My heart pounded against my chest, threatening to break free as I clutched the phone tighter. I never thought it would come to this, but here we were. The betrayal stung, a sharp knife twisting in my gut. The father of my children, my ex-husband, was actively trying to tear me apart. He had always been manipulative, but this was beyond anything I could have imagined. My children's safety, their well-being, were now in question. They didn't deserve this, and neither did I. I wasn't going to stand by and let him destroy me. I couldn't, not after everything I'd been through. My phone buzzed, a text from my lawyer. The message was short. "We need to talk. This is serious." I slammed the phone down, my mind spinning. I needed a plan, fast. It wasn't just Travis. It wasn't just him trying to ruin me. The attack was now everywhere. I couldn't go 5 minutes without my phone lighting up with another notification. Another video, another post. This time, it was a Facebook video, one that twisted a simple conversation into something unrecognizable. My face, my voice, everything had been warped to fit their narrative. The smear campaign was now viral, and I was the villain. I felt my stomach churn as the comments flooded in. "She's a mess. Unfit mother. Why does anyone put up with her?" The words stung, each one a slap to my face. I felt humiliated, exposed. But as the tears welled up, I realized something. I was stronger than this. This was just a game to them, but not to me. I couldn't let them win. I glanced at the screen again. Another video. Another lie. I gritted my teeth. I wasn't going down without a fight. The weight of the smear campaign hung heavy in the air, a constant cloud of negativity. But as I sat in the silence of my living room, I realized I had no choice but to fight back. I closed my eyes and let out a deep breath. The emotions were still raw, anger, betrayal, confusion, but there was something else now, something that had been growing inside of me since the first attack. Resolve. I couldn't just sit here and let them take everything from me. They had crossed a line, and it was time to make them regret it. I picked up my phone again and dialed my lawyer's number. The conversation was brief, but it was all I needed. I would get them back. Legally, emotionally, I would tear down the walls they had built. This wasn't just about me anymore. This was about protecting my children, my reputation, my life. I wasn't going to let them win. The hours passed in a blur as I put my plan into motion. My lawyer advised me to start gathering evidence, to document everything. So that's exactly what I did. Texts, emails, videos, everything. I wouldn't let their lies go unanswered. I also knew I needed to act fast. The CPS allegations were serious, and I couldn't let them drag on. So I made calls to family lawyers, to people who could help me. I wasn't going to sit idly by and let Travis get away with this. I picked up my phone again, this time dialing my work. I had to protect my job. I had to make sure that video didn't ruin my career. My heart was racing, but I knew I had to act. "Hi, this is Darlene. I need to speak with someone about a video that's been sent around." My voice was steady, but underneath it was shaky. They listened, and then they apologized. The video had no business being in their hands. I demanded it be removed, and I would not stop until it was. A small victory, but it was a victory, and I wasn't done yet. But the toll was starting to show. I felt the weight of it all, of the constant attacks, the never-ending worry for my children, the pressure of the legal fight. My mind was scattered, my body exhausted. I watched my children play in the backyard, their innocent faces unaware of the storm raging just beyond the door. But even as I smiled at their laughter, a knot tightened in my chest. They were facing the consequences of this war too. I saw the bruises in their eyes, the whispers at school, the bullying. It was all part of the collateral damage. It made me question everything. How much longer could I keep this fight going? Was it worth it? But then I remembered why I started this, why I couldn't back down. It wasn't just for me. It was for them, for my children. I couldn't let this break me. I wouldn't. And so I pushed on. I took a deep breath as I prepared to make the final push. I had my legal team in place, my strategy clear. But now it was time to confront the people behind this. Travis would have to face the consequences of his actions. He wouldn't walk away unscathed. I drafted a letter to my employer, laying out my side of. The room was suffocating. My chest felt tight as I stared at the phone in my hand. The screen showed a message from my mother. My hands shook as I opened it. The video, the one she had so proudly sent to my employer without a second thought. It wasn't just a betrayal. It was the final blow. I felt my stomach drop. My entire career, everything I had worked for, was teetering on the edge of a precipice. I wanted to scream. I wanted to lash out. But I didn't. I just froze. I couldn't believe she'd do this to me. She knew everything about me, my weaknesses, my fears, my vulnerabilities. And yet, she pushed me to this breaking point. I closed my eyes for a moment, feeling the weight of the situation pressing down on me. The world outside felt far away, but the anxiety clawed at me from every corner. My reputation was at risk. My job was at risk. And the worst part? It was coming from the people who should have supported me, the people who should have protected me. Instead, they were the ones trying to tear me apart. The phone buzzed again, another message from my employer. I didn't want to look at it, but I had no choice. I pressed open. "Darlene, we need to talk. Can you come in tomorrow morning?" I slammed the phone down on the table, the sound sharp in the empty room. My breath came fast and shallow. My mind was racing. This was it. If I didn't do something fast, I would lose everything. My job, my reputation, and worst of all, my children. I was already on the edge, but now I could feel myself starting to crack. The anger bubbled up, hot and fierce, and I had to force myself to control it. I couldn't afford to lose it now. I had to be smart. The doorbell rang. I wasn't expecting anyone, not after everything that had happened, but I knew, deep down, that it was them. My parents. The ones who had dragged me into this mess in the first place. I opened the door, my hands clenched at my sides. There they were, my parents, standing with a lawyer at their side. They had come to fight, to take my children from me. I stood frozen, my eyes narrowing. "What do you want?" "We're here to talk about custody," my father said, his voice cold, like he was reading from a script. I felt my heart beat faster. The audacity, the sheer nerve to show up at my door with a lawyer, as though they were the ones in the right. "What makes you think you have any say in this?" I asked, my voice shaking with a mixture of disbelief and fury. "This isn't just about you, Darlene," my mother chimed in, her voice sharp. "It's about your children, and your inability to provide a stable environment for them." The words cut through me like a knife. "You think you can just take them from me? After everything I've done for this family?" "We're just doing what's best for them," my father said, his gaze hard. "You've made a mess of things, Darlene. It's time to face the consequences." I couldn't take it anymore. I stepped forward, fists clenched. "This is my life, my family, and I won't let you destroy it." My mother's lips curled into a sneer. "You never were cut out for this, were you?" I could feel the rage rising within me, but I swallowed it down. I couldn't let them win. Not now. "Get out!" I spat, my voice low and dangerous. Get out of my house and don't come back. For a moment, they stood there, staring at me. Then, without a word, they turned and left, their lawyer trailing behind them. The door slammed shut behind them, and I felt the weight of everything that had just happened settle over me. I took a deep breath, fighting back the tears that threatened to spill. This was it. This was the moment I had been waiting for. I couldn't be the victim anymore. I couldn't let them control my life any longer. I pulled out my phone, my fingers moving quickly over the screen. I started documenting everything, the video, the messages, the threats, every little piece of the puzzle I needed to turn the tables on them. The stakes had never been higher, but for the first time in weeks, I felt like I had a plan, a real plan, and I would make sure they knew exactly who they were dealing with. I stared at the door, feeling the weight of every breath I took. My family had come with a mediator, a last-ditch effort to fix everything. The moment the mediator walked in, I knew it wasn't about healing anymore. It was about control. Their control. My stomach churned with frustration, but I didn't flinch. I simply stood there, my arms crossed, trying to suppress the anger bubbling under my skin. "You know why we're here," my mother said, her voice cool, calculating. She glanced at the mediator, as if seeking permission to continue. "We've all been through so much, Darlene. It's time to fix this." Fix this. I hated that phrase. The same phrase they always used when they wanted to impose their will on me. When they wanted to pretend like everything could go back to the way it was. But things had already shifted. Things had broken long ago, and no mediator was going to glue them back together. The mediator, a woman with a soft voice and an uncomfortable smile, tried to speak. "I think we can work through this. Let's all just take a moment." "No," I interrupted, the word cutting through the air like a knife. "No more. I don't want to work through this. I want it to end." I could see the shock in my parents' eyes, the way their faces froze for a moment, as if they hadn't expected me to speak like this. But I was done playing their game. I'd been quiet for far too long. The mediator hesitated, sensing the tension in the room. "Maybe we can find some middle ground," she suggested, but her words felt hollow. I wasn't buying it. "I don't need a compromise. I need control of my own life," I said. My voice was steady, calm, but there was fire behind it. "And you are not going to dictate that anymore." My father, who had remained silent until now, cleared his throat. "Darlene, we're family. We're just trying to help." "Help?" I repeated, my voice rising with incredulity. "You're not helping. You've been controlling, manipulating, and pushing me into corners for years. This is not help. This is power, and I am done with it." The silence that followed was suffocating. My family was used to being in control, used to getting their way. But I was done. This was the end of it. I felt my body grow still, the tension in my chest tightening. But I didn't speak. I didn't need to anymore. My silence was my statement. It was louder than anything I could say. The mediator cleared her throat again, but I didn't look at her. I kept my eyes on my parents, waiting for their reaction. The silence stretched between us like a wire pulled too tight. And then, I spoke. "I'm walking away," I said. "From this conversation, from this family dynamic. You no longer have any control over my life, my choices, or my children. This is my boundary, and I'm enforcing it." The words landed like stones, each one heavier than the last. The room felt colder, the weight of my decision pressing down on me. But in that moment, I felt something inside me shift. It wasn't anger. It wasn't sadness. It was clarity. I had taken back control. I turned to leave, not looking back. My parents were still seated, their expressions a mixture of disbelief and anger. But I didn't care. This was the final decision. There was no going back. In the days that followed, a strange mix of relief and loneliness washed over me. The relief was clear. I had broken free. But the loneliness, it lingered. It was the space that remained when everything I had known, all the connections I thought I had been severed. Was it worth it? I still wasn't sure, but I knew I had done what was necessary. As I walked through my house, I felt the walls close in around me. The family drama had ended, but in its place was something new. A life of my own, a life I could shape, without interference. I knew it wouldn't be easy. The questions, the doubts, they would come. But I was ready. I was ready to move forward on my terms. I had reclaimed my life, my power, and no one was going to take it from me again. I sat at the kitchen table, the letter from Judith lying before me like a heavy stone. The weight of it was familiar. Another attempt to manipulate, to drag me back into the toxic orbit of my family. Yet, for the first time, I felt no urgency to open it. I didn't flinch. I had been through too much to let her words cut through me again. The sting was still there, but it didn't bleed as much. I had learned how to carry it. 16 years ago, I would have crumpled at the sight of this letter. I would have read every word, clung to it, let it twist in my chest until I was suffocated by it. I would have felt that familiar tug to reach out, to try to fix things that were beyond repair. But now the letter felt almost insignificant, a relic of the past, something that had lost its power. I picked it up, stared at it for a long moment, and then set it aside. I wasn't going to read it, not today, maybe not ever. In the back of my mind, I could still hear Judith's voice, sharp, cutting, always ready with a jab disguised as concern. The same voice that told me I'd never amount to anything. The same voice that told me I was nothing without them. But that voice no longer held any power over me. I thought about the years I had spent trying to please them, trying to make them proud. How foolish it all seemed now. They would never be proud of me. I had come to accept that. They would always see me as the disappointment, the one who didn't fit into their perfect little world. But that was their burden to carry, not mine. The letter was just a reminder of that. A final attempt to reel me back in, to make me doubt myself, to make me question whether I had made the right choice in cutting them off. But I didn't need to question anymore. I had been free for so long now, and I wasn't going back. I couldn't help but feel a flicker of disappointment as I looked at the letter. It was sad, really, that they hadn't changed, that they couldn't see what I had become. But it wasn't my job to fix them. It never was. Instead of feeling anger, I felt relief. A quiet sort of peace settled over me. I had finally let go. I had finally stopped waiting for their approval. The shackles that had once bound me were gone, and I was stronger for it. I glanced over at Callie, who was playing with her blocks in the living room. She was my focus now. My life was no longer about trying to win back people who would never understand me. It was about her. It was about the future I was building for her, for us. As I sat there, the letter still sitting untouched, I made a decision. I was going to let go of the past completely. No more looking back, no more holding on to old wounds. They had their place in my story, but they didn't have to define me anymore. There were still unanswered questions, of course. Would Callie ever understand what had happened? Would my parents ever reach out? Would I ever find some sort of closure with them? But those questions didn't need answers right now. I had learned to live in the present, to take it one day at a time. The future was unwritten, and I wasn't going to let my past dictate it. I stood up, walked over to the window, and looked outside. The sun was setting, casting a golden glow over the backyard. For the first time in a long time, I felt hopeful. I wasn't waiting for anyone anymore. I wasn't waiting for apologies or reconciliation. I was moving forward, and I was going to do it on my own terms. I turned back to Callie, who looked up at me and smiled. That smile was all I needed. I was ready to rebuild, to create something beautiful for her, for us. The road had been painful, yes, but I had made it. I had come through the other side stronger, more whole than I had ever been. And no matter what happened next, I knew I could handle it. I had finally found peace. As I reflect on everything that happened, one thing stands out: the power to let go. Life will throw all kinds of challenges your way: family struggles, betrayal, hurt. But at some point, you have to choose to move forward. Holding on to anger, regret, or the weight of the past will only hold you back. It's hard, but sometimes the most empowering thing you can do is say, "I'm done with this. I'm moving on." I've learned that peace isn't about the absence of conflict. It's about the ability to carry on despite it. It's about being strong enough to choose your own happiness, even if it means walking away from toxic situations. And while I can't control what others do, I have the power to control how I respond. That's something I wish I'd known sooner. To anyone who feels trapped or stuck, remember, you have the strength to reclaim your life. It's not easy, and there will be moments of doubt. But believe me, you're more capable than you think. If this story resonated with you, leave a comment with the number 1, or let me know where you're watching from. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to subscribe for more stories like this. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Or, if you didn't like it, share your reasons with me. I'm always open to feedback. Take care, and remember, you're stronger than you think.